Hi everybody, this is Kelsi at Red Airs. We're going to do a class today on making containers with your houseplants or just with plants that are traditionally houseplants to kind of make your patio a little bit more interesting, so it's not just, you know, the regular annuals. Those of us that really like houseplants get a lot of enjoyment out of this because you kind of get to see everything you like in one container. And I think that, like, a lot of the plants that are houseplants are typically foliage plants. So a lot of plants like ferns is probably the main one, add a really nice element of green foliage to containers. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then I'm going to make a container after this, and then we'll send that picture out with this video. And then we'll kind of like take a progress picture so you guys can kind of see like what I'm talking about. I do this every year just because I think it's fun. And there's a lot of different plants you can use. So we're just gonna go over like what ones do well outside and then what plants are best to mix with houseplants, and kind of the different styles that you can do. So houseplants that do well outside, like I said, ferns. Ferns are great for putting in containers. You can make a container of only ferns if you want, because there's just so many different shapes and sizes and textures. And you can also mix them. I like to mix ferns with like Impatiens and Begonias, just because the fern is like a nice green background for just the really bright sort of like tropical colors that Impatiens and Begonias have. Palms are really good. There's nothing wrong with using a parlor palm in a shade container on a shady front porch. Crotons are really good, and they do well in a little bit sunnier spots. So let's say you have a patio that's like, I don't know if I would necessarily put a croton in the hot sun here just because of our kind of dry climate, and because our elevation is so much higher. But like on a porch that maybe gets a couple hours in the afternoon where a fern or a palm would burn, a croton will do really good, and it'll get a lot of color on it, and you won't have as many issues, you know, as you do in the house with a croton. I actually prefer crotons as bedding plants rather than house plants, because they're kind of finicky as houseplants. Some people do really well with them. I don't, and I don't know a lot of people that do. But if you do, congratulations. Another one is Anthuriums, and then along with that, like any blooming houseplant. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting an Anthurium or even like a Kalanchoe in an annual basket, because it's tall and it blooms, and sometimes it's hard to find annuals that are tall and they bloom. I mean, there's of course a lot like salvia, but it's fun to have, you know, salvia doesn't look super tropical. It is pretty and it does look kind of tropical, but an Anthurium, no, that's tropical, and it does well in the shade. So let's say you have a shade container and you really want like Begonias and Impatiens, and then maybe some creeping Jenny, and you need something tall in the back, and you're in the shade. So like, you know, there's some shade grasses that look good, but maybe you want something with flowers because you really just want like that, you know, bougie look. An Anthurium is perfect for that. And even like a peace lily, like these guys right here, I would totally put that in a mixed container. A Dieffenbachia, like this guy, I would also put that in there. I think they would tolerate just fine the same kind of soil conditions and temperature and light conditions as your typical shade bedding plants. Christmas cactus, they actually love it outside in the summer, and you'll get a better bloom cycle if you put them outside and mix them with your annual containers. Shrimp plants, they do really well outside. Honestly, any houseplant that has like a bloom cycle is generally going to like it outside. Maybe with the exception of African violets. I wouldn't necessarily put an African violet outside. I'm not sure if they would like it very much. So then like cacti and succulents, they can go outside. And I think there's not a ton of bedding plants that are gonna look good with cacti and succulents. But you could definitely use them sort of as a bedding plant. They do in a lot of different areas further south, whereas we use petunia baskets up here, they do succulent baskets, and they're very beautiful in places like Southern California, Texas, where they have kind of a dry climate, which we have. So I definitely would encourage you to try that out. Donkey tail makes a fantastic spiller in a basket. So citrus also, and there's no reason, something that I think people do a lot is they have their houseplant, like they have their monstera, and that's the only thing in the pot. Back, if you look at old houseplant books from like, 70s and 80s, which honestly are some of my favorite, when houseplants were like really in before just now, right now when they're in, they plant all kinds of stuff with their large houseplants. So like they have a palm, and then there's like pothos climbing around in the bottom, like that kind of thing. So there's no reason why you can't take your lemon tree, put it outside, and put some spilling sun bedding plants in there, just to add some extra interest. And maybe like plant strawberries in it, and you can take them out in the fall, and you've got like this, you got like lemons and strawberries. I can't really think of any better combination than that. Umbrella trees. I had an umbrella tree that somebody gave me that was like kind of rough. I put it on the porch, and it's never been better. It's beautiful in the house now, and then I'll put it back outside in the summer, and it can kind of have its little vacation. It'll look great when it's done. And again, plant bedding plants in there. I mean, there's no reason you can't, and then just take them out at the end of the year. I wouldn't put any compost in it because it's going to go back in your yard, but use some Jack's Classic to fertilize it, and the plant's going to grow a bunch, and then you're going to have this really neat combination. One of my goals this year is to kind of experiment with stuff like that. I want to like kind of see what boundaries we can push. And I've talked about this a lot. You guys, I'm sure you've heard this from me before, is creating like a patio paradise. And you really can't do that without foliage plants. So you have this giant monstera in your house, and maybe it's getting a little lanky, and it might need a little vacation outside. So put it on the shady porch and plant some ferns around it, plant some crotons around it, plant some begonias, some impatiens, add some like big ferns in there, and you've got like this crazy tropical paradise that's going to remind you of Hawaii. That's one of my favorite things in the summer, is going home and sitting on my shady porch among all my plants, and it's just like, okay, I kind of feel like maybe I'm a little bit in Hawaii now. So here's a list. I'm just going to tell you guys these annuals that are good for the shade, because most of your houseplants that you're going to put outside are houseplants that you're going to buy and then pot with your bedding plants. They're going to be better in the shade. So Impatiens, definitely one of my favorites by far. Begonias, it's probably a tie between those two. I love begonia flowers. They're beautiful. Persian Shield, and that actually can be a houseplant. Some people are successful with it, some people aren't. Juncus Grass also can be a houseplant. Again, some people do well, some people don't. It's that like kind of curly corkscrew grass. Mondo Grass is actually a perennial, but it does really well in the shade, and it's black. So it's a really good contrast in a mixed container. And then Creeping Jenny and Creeping Charlie, both are spilling plants that will spill out and kind of like cover the sides of the pot. So generally when you do a container, I'm sure maybe you've heard this, spiller, thriller, and filler. So the thriller is like the tall one that's really pretty. So what I'm talking about, you would use like the Dieffenbachia as your thriller, and then your filler might be like some ferns, or it could even be impatiens or begonias, and then your spiller is going to be that creeping Jenny or creeping Charlie that's going to kind of like spill over the side. So that's some options. And then another piece to this that I think makes it really fun is that you can, you know, the plants that you buy, like say you got the Dieffenbachia and you put it in your container. Well, at the end of the year, because it's not really a bedding plant and it's a house plant, you can just dig it up, put it in whatever pot you want, and take it inside. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Same with any ferns that you buy, they can all be house plants. So, you know, if you're the kind of person that, you know, you kind of don't necessarily want to buy like a bunch of annuals every single year, you can kind of have these staples. Like you can have your Dieffenbachia and your fern and your peace lily that you put outside every year. Maybe even you have a monstera that you put outside every year that you plant with other stuff, and then you take the bedding plants out in the fall and bring your plant back in, and you kind of have this like evolving container all throughout however many years that you do this. And it's just kind of fun because it'll be a little bit different every year. You can take a picture of it every year, and you'll have like this sort of diary of your main plant's growth, and you can mix and match. You know, maybe one year you put different ones, and I don't know, I just think it's really fun, and I just wanted to share it with you guys because I think it's something that a lot of people, like, they're like, oh, that's a bedding plant, oh, that's a house plant. Well, they're all plants, and there's no reason that they can't be mixed together and look really pretty. So I am going to do a container in the next couple days, take a picture of it, and then we'll post that, and then I'll kind of keep it, I'll keep it and grow it, and then when it's full and beautiful, I will update you guys with the progress picture. So hopefully what I put together comes out right. Everybody's a little bit different in their style, but I encourage you guys to come in and try this and take a picture and tag us in it, send it to us, email it to me, whatever you want to do, because I really want to encourage people to do this because I think it's a lot of fun. So I hope you all are doing well. I will see you very soon in the spring, hopefully, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.